America has a funny way of celebrating Black queer icons, usually after they're gone. While alive, they were too much, too loud, too radical, too real. But once buried, suddenly legendary. This isn't your average tribute, it's a glitter-covered reality check for those who only remember us when it's profitable. These 15 Black LGBTQ+ legends didn't die quietly, and we're not honoring them quietly either. If you've ever vogued in a mirror, you're dancing in his footsteps. Willie turned movement into protest. Every dip, duck walk, and hand flourish was a declaration. I exist. I matter. In the 1980s, when Black and brown queer kids were being shoved to the margins, Willie carved out runways in Harlem ballrooms where they could reign as royalty. He brought that fierce artistry to Paris is Burning, to the mainstream. And then came Madonna. Vogue went viral. But Willie, he got a round of applause and a fast fade-out. The fashion world took his brilliance, repackaged it in white bodies, and left him out of the credits. He died of AIDS-related illness at 45. No tribute show, no luxury brand capsule collection, just silence, and a few TikTok kids who think they invented duck walking last week. Society's legacy. Who? Exactly. First Black American admitted to the Paris fashion elite. He blended camp with critique, buttons, dolls, and watermelon references used to skewer racism. But he died of AIDS before he could build a lasting empire. No retrospectives, no Gucci collab, just silence and sequins. Society's legacy. Steals his style, leaves his name behind. The falsetto legend who sang with the soul of 1,000 disco balls. Before RuPaul, before Lil Nas X, there was Sylvester. A gospel-trained, gender-defying, sequin-soaked Black queen with a voice that could split the sky. He brought disco to church and church to disco. His music didn't just move bodies, it moved barriers. But when AIDS began its merciless sweep, Sylvester watched his friends die, one by one. He used his fame to fight, to speak out, to demand that America stop pretending not to notice. And for his courage, he got ignored. He died in 1988, no mainstream tributes, no Grammy, just silence. Now every Pride, you'll hear You Make Me Feel Mighty Real blasting from rainbow floats. The song's immortal. His name, barely a whisper. Legacy, reduced to a bop without a backstory. The Queen Mother of Ballroom, with wisdom sharp enough to cut lace. Yes, the headlines remember the body in the closet. But what they forget, what they choose to forget, is the years she spent as a seamstress of souls. Dorian wasn't just a drag legend. She was a protector, a teacher, a mother to lost kids who had been kicked out, pushed aside, erased. She showed them how to walk, how to shine, how to survive. Her closet may have held a dark secret, but her legacy held light. And instead of honoring her with a documentary or a Lifetime Achievement Award, they gave her a footnote in a true crime series. She didn't get her roses, she got reduced to a clickbait headline. Society's legacy, remembered for a corpse, forgotten for a community. Flamboyant, electric, radio gold until they cut the cord. He told us you didn't have to take your clothes off to have a good time. And he meant it. Jermaine brought joy, rhythm, and sparkly jackets to the 80s, crafting hits that lit up the charts and dance floors alike. He had the charisma of Prince and the charm of a pop star in bloom. But when whispers about his sexuality and health status began, the airwaves dried up. Interviews stopped. Invitations vanished. He became invisible while he was still alive. He died in 1997, mostly alone, at just 39 years old. No tribute concerts. No posthumous album release, just people at karaoke bars going, "Oh my God, I love this song. Wait, who sang it again?" Society's legacy, remembers the hook, forgets the human. A trans goddess who didn't just walk the runway, she floated. Octavia wasn't just beautiful, she was incandescent. Her dream? To be a fashion model in a world that thought trans meant disqualified. In Paris is Burning, she spoke of dignity like it was her birthright. And it was. She dared to want what was denied to people like her. Visibility, respect, a magazine cover that didn't treat her like a token. But Vogue never called. Calvin Klein never came. The same industry that profits off trans aesthetics today left Octavia out in the cold. She died of cancer at 45, cherished by the ballroom scene, mourned by underground icons, ignored by the institutions she longed to crack open. Society's response, so inspiring. Then, absolutely nothing. No campaigns, no covers, no legacy, just faint applause and a forgotten name. A Black gay man who became a best-selling author in a world that barely wanted to shelve his books. He wrote about Black men who loved men, sometimes in secret, sometimes with joy, always with complexity. His novels weren't just stories, they were mirrors for the unseen. He built an audience from scratch, one page at a time, in barbershops, book clubs, and word-of-mouth circles. He proved that there was a market for these stories, if the gatekeepers would just move aside. But instead of celebrating him, the publishing world said, "Urban lit." Translation: thanks, but no mainstream respect, no Pulitzer, no HBO miniseries, no Oprah sticker, just a shrug and a dusty shelf in the African American interest section. He died at 54, no fanfare, no headline. Legacy? Didn't he write something my aunt used to read? A visionary choreographer who brought Black America to center stage while being forced to hide his whole truth. Alvin's dances were sermons, bodies bending, twisting, reaching toward freedom. He gave us Revelations, a masterpiece of movement that honored Black faith, sorrow, and survival. He founded the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater so dancers of color could take up space with beauty and power. But behind the curtains, Alvin lived a double life. He couldn't be openly gay. Not if he wanted white donors. Not if he wanted to keep the lights on. Even when AIDS came for him, he asked for the cause of death to be listed as something else. He gave the world art. It gave him erasure. Society's legacy celebrates the choreographer, erases the man. The mother of the house, the architect of chosen family, a light extinguished too soon. Angie didn't just walk balls, she built them. When kids were thrown out of their homes for being queer or trans, she took them in. She stitched their gowns, held their hands, told them they were beautiful when the world called them trash. She ran a house like it was a sacred refuge. But the world she helped protect them from eventually took her too. AIDS doesn't care how loving you are. And after Angie died, the same system she'd been shielding her children from kept swallowing more of them whole. Society's legacy, Vogue's on TV shows, drops her house's name on Instagram bios, but forgets the labor, the care, the cost. Angie gave them family, they gave her footnotes. Assaulted in front of the world, murdered a month later, no one is held accountable. When a viral video showed Malaysia being beaten in a Dallas parking lot, the internet cried out. News anchors feigned outrage, politicians tweeted platitudes, but justice, protection, change, nowhere to be found. 30 days later, she was shot and killed, just 22 years old. Her death wasn't just tragic, it was predictable. The warning signs were on video, and still, nothing. Her story faded the moment the hashtag stopped trending. Society's response: add her name to the list. Light a candle, say RIP, then forget. Legacy, trauma porn with no follow-up. Black, trans, killed by police, discarded by the movement he should have belonged to. Tony didn't die in the 1980s. He didn't die in silence. He died in 2020, during the so-called racial reckoning. He was shot by police in Florida, and somehow, his death didn't fit anyone's script. He was trans and masculine presenting. He had a record. He was complex, and that complexity made him inconvenient. So while Say Their Names echoed across streets and screens, Tony's name barely passed a whisper. Because he wasn't perfect, because he challenged the neat narratives people like to chant. Society's legacy. Fought for justice, but only for the photogenic. Tony became a footnote in a footnote. Black, queer, armed, unafraid, and punished for all of it. Corin dared to defy the script. She live-streamed a standoff with Baltimore police. She refused to be silent. She refused to comply. And for that, they shot her in her apartment and shot her son too, 5 years old, wounded in front of his mother's body. But she wasn't the right kind of victim. She had a gun. She talked back. She didn't smile for the cameras or beg for sympathy, so the world moved on. No murals, no marches. No Netflix docuseries. Society's response: she should have known better. Legacy buried under respectability politics. No pride for some of us without liberation for all of us. Marcia wasn't just at Stonewall, she was Stonewall. She threw bricks, opened shelters, served meals, and kissed foreheads. She did drag not for show, but for survival. She walked the streets of New York like a patron saint of the forgotten, crowned with flowers and cloaked in resistance. She fought for Black trans kids before the acronym had a T in it. And then in 1992, she turned up dead in the Hudson River. The NYPD labeled it a suicide faster than you could say bias, and they investigated it with the enthusiasm of someone looking for a lost sock. For years, her death was treated like a shrug. Society's response? Paint a mural, name a crosswalk, toss out Marsha P. Johnson once every June like a magic spell that makes people feel woke. Cool. Thanks. She deserved justice, not hashtags. Poet, activist, truth teller. Too Black, too gay, too unflinching for your curriculum. Essex didn't write poems, he lit fuses. He told America that being a Black gay man wasn't about rainbows and parades, it was about surviving silence, dodging violence, and trying to find joy anyway. He wrote about desire, rage, HIV, and hope in the same breath. Publishers didn't know what to do with him. Too political, too queer, too everything. He was anthologized in whispers, taught in no schools, and loved fiercely by the ones who saw themselves in his fire. He died in 1995, just before the digital age could carry his voice to the world he wrote for. Legacy, quoted in protest signs by people who've never cracked a spine of his books. He warned us. We blinked. He didn't want fame, he wanted freedom. For Black gay men to exist without apology. In the 1980s, Joseph looked around and saw that no one was writing about men like him, so he became the voice. He edited In the Life, the first anthology of Black gay men's writing, crafting a space where the words Black, gay, and human could sit together without shame. He had plans, big ones, but AIDS took him before the second volume could be finished. The silence he left behind was painful, gaping, and felt like a betrayal by a world too busy to care. His death wasn't just personal, it was generational. One less beacon, one less book, one more void. Society's response: slap a rainbow on a bank logo and say love is love, but only if it's palatable, only if it sells.